So, welcome back, guys, to Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host, Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the birthday escape himself, Reese.
Hello.
Before we start, please do not forget to hit that like, subscribe, and follow button so you never miss an upload. This also helps the algorithm and helps us get exposure. It is a great way to support us for absolutely free. I'll probably have some subscribing magic popping on my head right about now. So, Paul, by your birthday, 1 year older, 1 year closer to death, and all that depressing thought, how are you and what have you been doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Firstly, I'll apologise if I sound awful. I've got like a cold or something, so I'll try and mute myself to cough.
The birthday session obviously gave him the flu, clearly.
I think that's basically what it was, yeah. But yeah, a lot going on Pauper-wise this week, to be fair. I played in a local weekend event, and I took Dredge. First time playing Dredge, it was pretty fun. I ended up coming second, losing in the finals to Slivers, which was an interesting deck that I didn't expect to come up against. It felt like I probably had a good matchup, but game one, I had the life gain, but he had the poison sliver, so I just ended up getting poisoned out. And then game two, I just had a bit of a clunky draw, and not a great mill. And Slivers, if it basically goes 1 drop, 2 drop, 2 drop, 1 drop, you die pretty fast. But yeah, it was a really good match. And just playing Dredge was really fun. I ended up versing Heroic, the Dredge Mirror, Blue Black Fair, and then Slivers in the finals. Other than that, I played the 4th round of the Card Market Best Deck Ever series, which was against Dan, and he was playing Bogles. So that was an interesting matchup, like old school Bogles, where it plays like I think 16 creatures with aura knowledge and stuff like that. So very different from the Bogles we're about to mention. And then finally, I started a league yesterday with Glitters. Although, as we'll see in the results, basically everyone is like turbo gunning for Glitters now. So it didn't go particularly well. One of the matches in particular, I was against Corgate, and they had Dust to Dusts and Cast into Fires and Pyroblasts and Gorilla Shamans all brought in. So like full on transition to red-white Corgates instead of blue-white.
That's a lot of hate.
Yeah. So, and I think that's, as we'll see from these results, I think that's probably gonna transition for a while, where there will be a lot more hate towards Glitters.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being the consensus, as we'll get into. Yeah, for sure.
What about yourself?
Yeah, I decided to I thought I best give myself some credit and try and learn actual decks is the best way I can describe it. As a lot of people here know, I do love a good brew or a good underdog. So I decided last week that I'd start doing a video series where I learn decks. And I thought I'd start with Kuldotha, mainly because I said to you, which deck should I start with? And lo and behold, you said Kuldotha.
The best deck?
So yeah, that went well. It was a good video. So I've still got, I'm going to do like, say, probably like 3 maybe. I might not release them all in concession, but I'll probably do like 3 to maybe 4 videos of Kuldotha. And I'll probably do a couple of other decks that are like up there. Difficult to play maybe, but unsure. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've been doing. I started writing for Patreon for this as well. Like this deck, which is also quite surprising, people really do not give this deck credit at all. Like, this deck is not an aggro deck, it's a control deck in disguise, I'm telling you. So yeah, very good deck, very cool to learn it, and I was surprised by a lot of stuff, and it's definitely a powerful deck that definitely people underappreciate even the playing of it. It's not, a lot of people think it's just very much like, here's my goblin guide, I attack you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got a lot of play to it, which I'm quite surprised.
Yeah, I think especially in terms of like sequencing,
mm.
it can go wrong quite fast with sequencing, especially with like simps and second simps and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of matchups that if you do lose, a lot of them when you do lose them, you think, you know, even though there's going to be variants where you literally can't play anything, or you get absolutely flooded and you've got nothing, you've literally got nothing to go. But I'd say a good 80% of the matchups people lose will be down to sequencing and how they've played it. They've just missed damage here, missed damage there, or they've missed sequence spells. Could have been anything from playing a bolt over a chain lightning, and that meant you couldn't hold up a bolt for when it was free, and all this sort of stuff. Like it's surprisingly it has a lot more play to it, is what I'm trying to say, than people do definitely give credit for. And I am excited to carry on learning this deck for sure. Would you like to move on to some tournament news?
Yeah, go for it.
So tournament news. Come On Magic is back on the 9th and 10th of March, which I believe is this weekend, right? That sounds about right? Jesus, where's the year going? 9th and 10th of March, Pauper weekend, including Pauper trios and a Pauper main event. Check out the link in the description below for all details. Other than that, there's been a surge of UK events a lot on Twitter and things like that, so I would just recommend following Pauper Dan, as he generally retweets them, or just follow something like the Pauper UK Facebook group or something along them lines where all the events are generally posted.
Yeah, I think I actually seen Dan just before tweet. There's a Pauper winner box happening down near London. So if you live down that way, have a look on Dan's Twitter and see if you can go to that. It'll be a good event.
Yeah. For sure. Other than that, the only other news is obviously I would check out Kalikaiz Trophy Tuesdays. Generally, they happen every Tuesday, bar last week, which was a Trophy Thursday. But hotel Wi-Fi wasn't good enough, clearly. Yeah, he covers all the 5-0s from a week period and shout-outs generally, any trends that he sees, cool brews, and all that sort of stuff. And it's quite good to follow because it's good to see how it tracks through, because obviously we cover the challenges, he covers the trophies, and it's quite nice to see what the percentages and the general trends are, see if that correlates to what we see on a weekend, really. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Anyways, let's get into the stuff that everyone is here for. We have 4 events, 2 on the Saturday and 2 on the Sunday. We will cover both Saturday, then both Sunday, in that order.
Yeah. So the first event is just the regular Saturday challenge, which was the 2nd of March. 56 players, which is slightly less than we usually see, but not too much. And a pretty interesting top 10. So first place is Blue White Glitters. Second place is Blue White Glitters. Third place is also Blue White Glitters. And fourth place is Blue White Glitters. Fifth place is then Poison Storm, of all things. Sixth place, Blue Black Fair. Seventh place, Blue Black Terror. Eighth place, Blue Red Scred. And then the near misses. Ninth was Bogles, showing up again as a near miss. And 10th was Ponza. Obviously, a very from the past month, I would say, very out of the norm top 8. Like, we haven't seen top 8s with just multiple of the same deck for quite a long, like basically since Kuldotha was at its peak, essentially.
Yeah.
Outside of the top 4, the rest of, I guess, the top 10 is more in line with what we tend to see, with a bunch of sort of top tier decks like Blue Black Flare, Blue Black Terror, and then alongside some more fringe decks, but decks that can also get there, like Bogles and apparently Poison Storm now, as it's cropped up a couple of times.
Same pilot as well. Same pilot, same list twice in 2 weekends. Yeah. Pretty good going.
But yeah, obviously super dominant from Blue White Glitters. And it wasn't even like it was hugely represented either. I think was the 7 pilots and 4 of them top 4'd. Yeah. Which is just nuts.
I think the thing that I find interesting is basically it has sort of like had a dip in challenges. So like you kind of see like 3 or 4 or something, and then like maybe 1 top 16s, and you kind of maybe see one that peaks through to top 8. And I don't know if it's just people are just skimping on hate, or they thought, you know what, I'm going to play this deck because it's better positioned against these decks, and Glitters just managed to get under them. But the other thing, I think they were the all the like 8 two.
Or
Not,
the 8 Inspector.
yeah, the 8 Inspector. I was just double.
I think a couple of them were.
So first, second, and fourth were.
Yeah, the other one was a 6.
And then it was a 6 with still 4 Frogmites and a Kenku. So like obviously a bit more of a wilder out there list. Obviously only run like 2 Rebukes.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, like all cutting the Frogmites and running the 8 Inspectors. Sorry, seems to I would actually say probably helps a lot. It does give it that longevity because it's less susceptible to dust to dust and all that here because they've got more creatures that aren't artifacts. And also it's just a card that when you get into that late game, it's here you go. You have 6 mana or something. I can just keep drawing cards.
So, yeah, I think that's one thing that I, when initially playing Blue-White Glitters, found that was a challenge. Like before the Novice Inspectors come out, where you like cast your Thought Cast, draw 2 dead cards, and then that's it for your turn. But now, as you say, with 8 Inspectors, you just like if you come to a dead draw, you can just crack a clue and keep going.
Yeah.
And it does make quite a bit of difference, especially with the ninjas and then the of 1 mines, which are easier to cast now because you have more humans. And obviously the Thought Cast as well. But it definitely seems to fit in a period where Blue-White Glitters was sort of a big thing. Then Jeskai sort of come up, and everyone was thinking, oh, well, maybe this is the better way to play it. And then, like, the last few weeks, we've had quite a bit of a lull in both versions. Like, Blue-White Glitters went down, Jeskai went up, then Jeskai went down. And now, since that drop in Jeskai, obviously, this week, Blue-White Glitters has just exploded.
Yeah. And it's definitely a strong deck, as a lot of people know. Like, if you are not prepared for this deck, it will obviously just get you. And I'm not surprised that it's the deck that's kind of had this blowout. Yeah. I always do think, though, when I do look at this, is obviously a lot of people can see this as like, you know, oh no, I'm just dead on turn 3 or dead on turn 4, depending on the deck. Like, I do think this deck is strong, and I do think it is weak to a lot of hate.
Yeah.
But I also do think that I don't know if it needs overcompensated with a lot of hate, because I do think if any out of the 2, Jeskai and Blue-White, this deck seems better at fighting the hate now, even more because of the Novice Inspectors and also because of Rebuke. Rebuke's a very good card to just get around hate.
Especially game 1.
Oh, for sure.
And even after board, you can easily like take out your Rebukes for better counter spells like Turn Aside or Rebs, or Hydros, sorry. And then they're going to play around Rebuke anyway, because they can't really afford not to.
Yeah. Definitely. It's nice to see, obviously, just it appear back again almost. But, yeah. Another thing that I do find quite funny about this, if you actually just look at the 2 near misses, it looks like 2019 Pauper. Like Bogles and Ponza in 9th and 10th. Not only Ponza, but Shatun on Ponza again. Decide to put down the mono red Tron and pick back up the Ponza.
I think Bogles recently is sort of coming back as a bit of a dark horse. Like last week we've seen a couple. There's another here from essentially nowhere. Like no one was playing it. It wasn't putting up any results. And then as we go on, it crops up a couple more times as well, which we'll see, which is surprising, but yeah, good to see Bogles doing well.
The only thing I can think of is there's less edicts about.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I think it's probably shining for, because there's a lot of decks trying to fight going wide, or, you know, specifically artifact hate for glitters.
Yeah.
Like Blue-White Glitters. But,
yeah, I think especially when the red sideboard cards as well are changing from like End the Festivities and Electricaries to Cast into the Fires to fight like Blue-White Glitters and still fight the 1/1s, but it doesn't work against Bogles.
Or even Breath Weapon as well. Like, it works against Bogles, but it's infinitely slower, and that turn just couldn't matter so much.
Yeah. You'd hope by the time they can Breath Weapon, you can suit up a guy to be at least 3 toughness.
So yeah, definitely a sweet one. I don't
Do you
think there was
want
anything. Yeah, I think I'm okay to move on. I guess the only thing I mentioned is Campo obviously making a return with blue red scred, but also
to...
not really a sort of, I don't want to say traditional list like Spock v the Locals list with like with ponders and brainstorms and stuff. It's running frantic inventory, so which is I guess
Yeah.
and preordain as well. So like more like an old school draw package and like two brainstorms, two Lorien. So pretty interesting, like going old school and obviously working out.
Mm. I
Yeah.
guess the sort of frantic inventory draw engine does work pretty well with Terra.
Mm.
Just in the fact that your draw spells essentially can just sit in your graveyard and get your value later.
Mm.
Although when it gets hated out, it sort of hates out your draw package as
Yeah.
well, which can be awkward.
I would also like to add there's two campfires in the sideboard.
And a ghost fire.
And a ghost fire.
And 3 casting fires, all the fires.
Yeah. I really do like Ghostfire in the blue-red sideboard as well, on an unrelated note. But yeah, pretty sweet. There was nothing looking at the metagame percentages. There wasn't anything too alarming either. I'm not going to go through each individual one, but yeah, there wasn't anything stand out.
Yeah, it was just sort of what you would expect, really, wasn't it? Which
Yeah,
is surprising given how dominant the blue-white glitters was at the top. It was just, there wasn't that many people playing.
Just had an incredible transition period? Conversion, that's a word. My brain's scattered today. I'm already a pint in. Move on to Saturday, the qualifier.
Yeah. So also on Saturday the 2nd, we had a Pauper Qualifier, which was 219 players. Which is obviously really sweet to see.
Mm.
First place was Blue White Glitters. Second place was Kuldotha. Third place was Corgates. Fourth was Flickertron. Fifth was Bogles. Sixth was Grixis Affinity. Seventh was another copy of Flickertron. And eighth was Blue Black Terror. And then the 2 near misses were a second copy of Blue White Glitters in 9th and Boros Synth in 10th. Yeah, that's sort of more of a top 8 that we have sort of become accustomed to seeing lately. Obviously some main staples like Kuldotha Glitters, Corgates, and Blue Black Terror all making it, but also just the outlier decks, Bogles cropping up again, a couple of copies of Flickertron, and even Grixis Affinity sort of, I would start to call that an outlier deck now. Like, it's just been completely unpresent for like the last few months.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I'm not surprised it is Luffy playing it. He's obviously very much the Grixis Affinity pilot, and even when everyone was on Glitters, he was still hard rocking Grixis Affinity. Like he's never gonna give it up. But yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, and then as you got down here, numbers wise, again, it was sort of what you'd expect. Obviously, scaled up to a much
players.
larger event. Yeah. With 29 pilots on Glitters and 31 pilots on Kuldotha, sort of basically trades to the 7 that we usually see on each deck in the 50-player challenges.
Yeah, I think the Glitters was a bit split. There was like 1 or 2 Boros and then like 1 or 2 Jeskai, but I like it wasn't many. The majority of them were blue white for the large consensus, for sure.
And a big shout out to Las Vegas Chaos as well. He's been obviously grinding blue white Glitters for quite a while now. Always with the 1 of Phyrexian Walker in his list, which is always quite funny. But yeah, getting the top spot. I believe he's posted a quick sideboard guide on his Twitter as well, just for free. So if you have any interest in playing blue white Glitters and looking at his list, I would definitely recommend checking that out.
110%. It's congrats to him. It's obviously great that he obviously managed to. Because he's done obviously a lot of like top 4s and top 8s over the past few months, and it's definitely good that he finally got a win in the qualifier as well. So I have no idea what he qualifies them for. Probably some sort of mocks or something like that. It all gets too confusing for me. These modern day unboomer systems and all this sort of stuff. Too old for this. But
it's never very clear what how Magic Online works and what's on where and stuff like that. I do struggle with that as well, to be fair.
But yeah, I do believe it qualifies probably. I think it's for the mocks, right, or something along them lines. I actually don't really know. I'm not gonna lie. I could probably find out. That's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
We like to play Magic Online for fun to win. That's not qualifiers. That's as far as we go. But yeah, obviously standard sort of, as you've mentioned, obviously standard top 8, top 10 that we kind of grow to expect. I'm surprised there was 2 Flickertrons as well.
Yeah. The two Flickertrons and again the Bogles were the big outliers for me for fringe decks. There wouldn't have been the ones that I would have put money on getting into the top 8 in a 220 player tournament.
There was only 3 pilots on Flickertron as well, and 2 of them managed top 8. 4th, 7th, actually all 3 managed to top 16. Nice.
It's a very good conversion rate for Flickertron.
I was thinking there, I typed in Urza to find how many there was, and it came up with 12. I was thinking 12 people played, and then I realised it's because each one will have 4 Urza's Tower, Urza's I was like, oh, why did I do that? But there we go. So, but yeah, definitely sweet to see. Also sweet, obviously, that one of them was RC Klim. I don't think we've seen the pilot for a while. He was like usually they were usually the go-to Tron pilot that we used to see top 8 and top 16. So sweet that obviously they managed to get that into a 7th place in the qualifier. Yeah, pretty sweet. It seemed like a good showing for generally 4 grinders, which, to be fair, it's kind of what you expect. To be fair, these guys will obviously have the qualifier points to participate in this. Not that it's particularly difficult to do that, but obviously these guys will have above and beyond and be used to what obviously the Pauper metagame is. I think I'm unsure if it was the vintage, if it was the same type of qualifier, because it was called like a vintage super qualifier. God knows what that meant, but that had 193 players. I don't know if that took more qualifying points or something, and it was like harder or something like that, but still clearly a good showing for Pauper in these larger events, because
yeah, definitely. And as you say, the seeing grinders do well is not surprising. Like, they've got the QPs, but they also just know the format, and to do this well at a 220 odd player event is you need to know the format like the back of your hand. Yeah,
definitely. Definitely pretty sweet to see. As we've said, the numbers didn't scream out anything too exciting for us. So yeah.
Yeah, just scaled up from what we see in the challenges, really.
Yeah. Would you like to move on to the Sunday 64?
Yeah. So the Sunday, the 3rd of March, the 64 challenge fired as it normally does. 70 players.
Oh, nearly didn't. 6 players off.
First place was Black White Blade. Second place was Blue White Glitters. Third place was Turbo Fog. 4th place was Gardens. 5th place was Blue White Glitters. 6th was Blue Black Terror. 7th was Blue Black Fair, and 8th was Blue Black Terror. And then the near misses, 9th was Ponza, again in the near miss category, and 10th was a 3rd copy of Blue White Glitters.
Shatton's weekend. Unfortunate.
I guess my first comment on this, which we've seen a comment on it most weeks now, is, do we need a backup challenge given this one fires every single week?
Yeah, I think the thing is, unless there's, I don't even know how, like, the last one that didn't fire was like Christmas, which obviously is like a generally it's Christmas. It's a global event that happens to everyone, that it's probably not going to fire. Yeah. Like, is there going to be any other weekend that would happen? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, my thought on it is still just move the backup challenge to Saturday and make the Saturday challenge a 64. Like, it either gets enough people or very close to enough people each week to be a 64 anyway.
Yeah.
So if you put the prizes up, it will probably get more people on fire. And then you've got 2 64 events firing every week. But yeah, outside of MTGO politics, it's a pretty mixed challenge. Obviously, a very good show for Blue White Glitters once again. With 3 copies in the top 8, in the top 10, sorry. It's obviously had an insane weekend with two wins and a second in here.
Yeah.
It's definitely been the deck to be on, but as I said at the start, I think that's going to result in it being extremely aggressively hated out. As it is easy to do, to be fair.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I do think you need probably more than you think. So like a lot, like you need a lot more hate than you would think. But it is, if that is your deck, you are going to lose hard to or expect to see a lot of. Having those extra sideboard slots for that deck is definitely not an issue. To be fair, like for example, when I play Mugworts, I think I have five sort of artifact hate that coincidentally are mainly for relic, but obviously they're all modal like a brain and cast into fire that they do double up. So being able to be good against glitters or other sort of decks like red decks, being able to bolt stuff, deal 1 damage to other stuff also really helps. So like these cards, like these anti-artifact cards can be quite versatile, as mentioned, like a braid, like Smash to Dust, like Cast in the Fire. Like you don't need to go as hard on them with like Dust to Dust. So
yeah.
It
definitely seems to have cemented itself back now as well as the go-to variant, at least for the moment. Everyone was hyped on Jeskai for a while, but after a performance like this, I can't imagine many people are really considering Jeskai at the moment.
Yeah, I think to be fair, the thing that's surprised me more than I expected is 8 inspectors is actually being
a big deal.
I expected 6 to be probably reasonable, but I also would never come to the conclusion to cut and Frogmite to basically add 4 extra inspectors, and that seems to be the consensus at the moment. And I'm definitely not surprised by that. Well, I am surprised, but I'm now not surprised that this deck's doing well.
I think as well, like the majority of these lists are just 8 inspectors. There was the one on the first Saturday event that was 6. But I think all the others that we're seeing in these top 8 are just 8 inspectors.
Yeah.
And yeah, from playing it, it does feel good. Like having so many more clues. It's just really good. And the 1/2 body, although it was always joked about as Raven Inspectors, like the card to beat Kuldotha, etc. The 1/2 body is just really relevant at the moment.
Yeah. Even just being able to freely, like, having, I know it sounds silly, but even having 2 1/2s and your opponent having, like, an Augur, like, it's not irrelevant that you're chipping away 1 damage a time. Like, I know it sounds silly, but that, like, stuff like that adds up. Yeah. Another thing to note, I guess, moving on, not talking about glitters, is that it seems like a good week for Snuff Out as well, which I'm also not surprised with it being such a good weekend for glitters. Obviously 3 blue-black decks in the top 8, and I think there was 11, looking at this, there was 11 Terra decks, and all 11, if I just quickly scan through, were blue-black. None of them were blue-red. So...
all mono blue.
All mono blue. I forgot that was a deck, I'm not going to lie to you.
It has definitely fallen off. Like, I guess Jeskai Glitters has blue-black Terra. Sort of has come back in a similar way to blue-white Glitters, as this is the now go-to Terra deck again.
Yeah, I think Snuff Out and Unexpected Fangs do a lot of the carrying, to be fair. Yeah. So I'm not... Like, most of them have, like, 2 to 3 copies of Fangs in the main, and...
Probably... when you want to beat Glitters and Kuldotha, having access to, firstly, Snuff Out and Cast Down, but also Suffocating Fumes and Unexpected Fangs is just, it's a huge deal.
And having their backup plans sort of negated too, like the 4/4 combat kind of gets negated by a 5/5 very easily.
Yeah.
So a lot of good positives to blue-black in general. So yeah, definitely a sweet. To be fair, sweet all 3 challenges. Even though obviously one of them was very weird with the 4 glitters top 4. But this one, to be fair, is the funniest one of all. If you want to move on to the Sunday, the 32.
Yeah,
this one amuses me.
The backup challenge, the Sunday 32, was 50 players. First place was Blue White Glitters. Second place was Kuldotha. Third place was Gardens. Fourth place was Gardens. Fifth place was Blue White Glitters. Sixth place was Blue White Glitters. Seventh place was Gardens. Eighth place was Blue White Glitters. And then the near misses, ninth place was Gardens. And 10th place was Blue White Glitters.
Yeah.
So yeah, as we have come to expect, the backup challenge looks very weird. This is probably the weirdest one we've seen.
Yes.
With essentially one Kuldotha deck and then just Blue White Glitters and Gardens.
Yeah.
Not a very good look for Pauper.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's really through. Like, this challenge looks horrendous.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't looked at the numbers. I honestly have. I didn't get a chance to look at the double queue. I will do it after the podcast and just generally just to know. But this, I have no words to, like. This is literally what, obviously we're one deck away from being a two deck top 10.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. And the two decks are basically one really aggro deck and one deck that's really good at beating the aggro decks. That's essentially it. You've also got interesting things like Baco's decided to obviously won the whole thing. Baco won the whole thing on Blue White Glitters. The exclusive blue black fair player for the past 3 months decided to rock up with Blue White Glitters. Nick Norman again doing another top 4. Didn't manage to win the top 32 this time with Gardens, just top 4'd it. Like, there's a lot of just good pilots, good players. Just, I'll play Blue White Glitters. It's probably the best deck, and I probably don't have to think because I'm going to play the other challenge anyways.
As you scroll down it as well, it just gets worse. Like 11th, 13th, 16th, 18th, 20th. They're all Blue White Glitters. There's just so much.
Yeah. Which is crazy. It's just wild.
But yeah, as we said, it's the backup challenge as well, where a lot of people end up double queuing it. I'm not sure what the percentage was this time, but it's generally around 50 to 60% of double queuing. And you may as well. The best deck in the format at the moment is clearly Blue White Glitters. It's a very fast deck. You may as well double queue Blue White Glitters. And then if you want to try and be anti the double queue meta in the challenge, Gardens seems like a reasonable answer to that.
Yeah, and looking at just as a standpoint, like, Baco decided to double queue Blue White Glitters both sides. Yeah. Just as, like, picking one off. Obviously, he ended up for the past, is this the 5th double queue? Because I think it's been 6 weeks, but one of them didn't fire because Magic Online shit itself. So so the past 5, I believe he's double queued Blue Black Fair the entire time. So it must show how much the win percentage is that little that the master of Fairs decided to, I'm just going to play Glitters and I'll double queue it. Ended up winning and coming 23rd in the 64 and 32. 14 of the decks are Glitters as well. 14 Glitters pilots in the 32.
Yeah, which is probably twice as much as we would normally expect as well.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's just skewed by the timing of this challenge, unfortunately.
Interestingly enough, the Kuldotha looks very normal. Only 7 pilots. One's sticker red, but other than that, the rest are actually just Kuldotha. So yeah, that's again another interesting thing that hasn't changed, but obviously the Glitters is obviously skewed to, I'd say, as you said, doubled.
Yeah.
But that's basically what 7 and 14 pilots is taking up near enough half of the metagame. What was it, 50 players?
Yeah.
50 players is half. You're looking at just under 50% of the aggro decks, and that's not including Bogles or any other actual aggro decks. That's just 2 decks. So interesting for sure. This challenge does do that though, as we've discussed.
It does tend to look very odd. I guess my final takeaway, just again on the Inspector, the 8 Inspector point, is all of the Glitters in the top 10 were 8 Inspector Glitters. There was like a couple of variations, like with Phyrexian Walkers in a couple of them and stuff like that. But yeah, all of them just had 8 Inspectors.
Yeah, it doesn't. They don't look too far away from each other, right? It's like a Phyrexian Walker, a fourth Rebuke, a fourth of One Mind, somewhere around there. It's
Pretty much. There's like maximum 5 cards that differ
yeah,
between all of them.
pretty
Um,
interesting.
but yeah, 18 Spectres definitely seems to be the way forward with Glitters.
Yeah. Sad day for Frogmite. First it gets cut out of Grixis Affinity, and now it's out of Blue White Glitters, the aggro affinity deck.
Yeah, it's just doesn't really hit hard enough anymore, unfortunately.
Doesn't cut the mustard in modern day
And
Pauper.
if you can play a 1-mana 1/2 that draws a card, that's probably better than a 1-mana 2/2.
Hmm? Yeah, true. Very, very true. Yeah, I don't think I've got anything particularly to add. I don't think any of the Gardens lists as well were particularly out of the ordinary. I do like to make sure that I've got those covered.
There was nothing I really noticed. There was a few like with the like one-off fungal infections and stuff like that in, but nothing that we haven't really seen before.
No, there's nothing really particularly new. Like as you say, obviously some of them have got the Nick Norman list. Some of them, like Nick Norman himself's put like a distress instead of a duress in the sideboard. Nothing too. Again, we've never not seen it before, but it does look like a lot of them were on some form of like Nick Norman's build a bath from the 9th place one, which was on. Looks like a Nick's sort of build with a campfire in the main. Must be some sort of other sociopath. But yeah, Gardens is pretty much. I don't want to say solved, but it's pretty close to be fair. The difference in removal spells is very mute. Not really too exciting to be fair. Anything else you want to move on to, or
No, go ahead to the shoutouts.
yeah? So I guess the main one is obviously just there's nothing too exciting to shout out this week. Just shout out all the grinders. Obviously, not only doing well over the challenges. Obviously, there was like Baco, Paulo Cabral, Campo making a return. Unlucky to Shattun for obviously the 2 9th and 10th places. Obviously, shout out to Las Vegas Chaos for winning the whole qualifier. But also, just to be honest, not even the big shout out, I think, is just shout out to all the grinders who played the qualifier, but also showed that it's not just a format you can just rock up, learn your deck, and that's it. Like you clearly need to know the format by how well all these grinders, these pauper grinders, have done. Like they clearly know the format. They not only know the format, they know their deck very well, and it shows here really. Obviously, with like RC Clinton, Luffy going off kilter with Grix Affinity and Flickertron, and also just top 8 in the event, which is also just nice to see. I know it's. It's always good that just more like obviously people who've qualified through like standard leagues or modern leagues or whatever. It's always nice to see people obviously come play Pauper, but it's also nice to see that the people who are devoted to Pauper get rewarded for knowing the format.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's sort of it. I guess I always got to individually shout out Ritual Sinkle for being an absolute crazy person and playing Turbo Fog and top 8. You crazy mofo. That's all I got.
Hot takes from last week.
Sure.
My first one from last week was that Weber's take on Kuldotha would pick up as a way to battle the grindier matchups. Yeah, definitely not true. And the grindier matchups seem to have completely disappeared this week. So unless that sort of rotates back, I can't see that actually becoming a thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, which I think there's still time. I think it takes a lot for people to change on what they know works. So fingers crossed it'll happen in the near future, but who knows? My next one was Dredge will top 8 next week, and yeah, it kind of wasn't really there. Like,
yeah, I think Kirby was in like 18th or 16th or something on one of the challenges, but that was sort of the highest Dredge I had noticed.
Yeah, I think was this. Yeah, Probo got 38th in the
Yeah.
qualifier. With
That's pretty high, to be fair, in the 200 and odd player event.
With his 12 lands dredge. So yeah.
And my second one was that blue-white glitters will return to the most popular variant, with the 5 to 8 inspectors becoming more common. Yeah, I don't think I could have got that any better unless I just said 8 inspectors are god tier, basically.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. Blue-white glitters is obviously uber popular this weekend, and it will remain popular for the next few weeks, despite the amount of hate, I would say. It'll take a while for it to die back down. But yeah, 8 inspectors definitely seems to be the way forward.
I think especially when people look at the challenges and just see like first to fourth is blue-white glitters, blue-white glitters, blue-white glitters. And then the Sunday 32 will obviously have basically blue-white glitters in the top 8. That people will, it'll be hard for them to look away even if they do get hated out a lot, I think. Yeah. Can't knock that one, to be fair. My last one was Corgate will be the most played deck next week in one of the challenges. That was clearly not the case. I don't know.
No, it just disappeared.
It just disappeared. Yours, you couldn't get any further away from, like literally bang on. And then yeah, mine couldn't be any further away. But there we go.
Yeah, so hot takes for next week. My first one was that, as we've said, blue-white glitters will start to be hated out pretty hard from next week, or from now, I guess, with a lot more artifact hate featuring in sideboards, which yeah, I can see happening.
I guess I should add top 16, I guess, and had an actual metric to mine. Mine is blue-white glitters will be the most represent aggro deck next week. I'm not only trying to steal Reese's thunder from last week, but I do think it will get a lot of hate, but it'll still be pretty highly represented. And I do think the really good pilots like Las Vegas Chaos and all that sort of stuff will end up kind of converting into the top 16 in a lot more than any other aggro deck will, basically. Not that there is many other aggro decks, it's either that or Cold Author, but still.
On that note, my second one is that Cold Author will make a stronger return to the top 8 next week. Obviously, we've seen a couple this week, but nothing compared to the Glitters domination. So yeah, Cold Author does have the tools there to fight this matchup. So it might tweak the builds or tweak the sideboards, but I do expect it to make a bit of a comeback.
Mine's more of winging and prayer, as I feel like this should literally be just standardly stapled on the bottom of our hot takes. Dredge, there'll be more Dredge next week, and it'll be due to
Dredge. Can you tell?
We do really like this deck. It's so different. More Dredge next week due to obviously the popularity in God of Pauper, not last week, the week before, and other events. And I just think I always think things take longer than we think they will. So that's why I think it's going to be there. And I have noticed that, for example, likes of Kirby and other content creators have said that when they ask people what do you want to see, the most common answer is Dredge. So people love it. People like to play it. It's gotta convert somewhere, and it's gotta be in one of these challenges. It has to be. Yeah. We just need it. We need some Dredge in our life. We just want to Dread return stuff. That's what we need. Would you like to add anything else?
No, that's it from me for this week.
So thank you all for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please do not forget to share it with your friends, your family, your local pauper community, and your jeweler. That's the only thing I can think of that shines and glittery. Seems very fitting. That's what
I was wondering where you got that from then. I was like, why does it come up with jeweler?
There you go. Show your jeweler. There you go. Because everything glitters. Anyways, that is all from us at Casting Commons. Until next time, and do not forget to stay hydrated. Peace!
Bye.